a new media platform that uses open data sources to analyze issues with the aim of fostering better governance, transparency, and accountability in India. She is alumnus of University of Sussex, UK. Uh, S- Ms. Salve holds two master's degree in economics and development studies. Uh, she 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 and her colleagues seek to engage with what they call critical data in order to inform citizens in becoming an active part of the governance process. India Spend is a non-profit project of Spending and Policy Research Foundation located in Mumbai. We have Priya Vardarajan, who is a founder and managing trustee of Durga, Dare to Understand Behavior, Respond Appropriately, and Guard Ourselves Ably. The organization behind panic buttons for Durga alarms in BMTC buses, working towards achieving equitable sharing of public places. Priya has worked with the philanthropy for over 4 years now in various capacities, and she is a chartered accountant by profession. And she had spent her first few years of her career at Deloitte, NS and Young, and Infosys. Priya holds deep empathy and connects with the vulnerable, particularly with women and girls who are survivors of gender-based violence and abuse. I would now request the speakers to give their opening remarks. I would like Mrs. Priya Vardarajan to start.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Anupama, for reaching out to me and getting me to be a part of this forum. Mr. Rao for the opening.
Can you talk closer to the mic? We are not able to hear clearly.
Sure. Is this better?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, I was basically saying thank you, Anupama, for reaching out, Mr. Rao for the introduction and for setting the perspective and context, and the entire team at the Indian Road Safety Campaign. I think all efforts to highlight issues around women's safety, particularly in public spaces, is extremely critical. And from the stats that you were just sort of sharing with us, Mr. Rao, it seems like men kill women on the roads because there are more men driving, there are more men out there, and women seem to just sort of, because of the accidents, succumb to bad driving. But jokes apart, I think it's a very, very critical issue. My role in this panel is to talk about women's safety. The space that we come from within Durga and my personal ideology is that women's safety is not a woman's problem at all. It is her right, or it is our right. And if we sort of look at the argument in that direction, I think we will start looking at the issue of safety for women in public spaces itself very differently. So I'm here basically in this panel to answer questions around what makes women safe, unsafe, how do you plan your spaces, how do you make women as users of road and people who will occupy roads rather than people who will just navigate from one place to the other. So the essence of the conversation would be around making spaces safe for women because it's their right. So looking forward to the discussion. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Very interesting. Next to you, Ms. Parachi.
Hello, my
Yeah.
name is Prachi Salve. I am with India Spend. I've been working on road safety for the last year. My interest in road safety began with uh, before that. I was working on every once a year when government reports come out. You tend to write stories on road safety. But my interest truly peaked when I was a part of the WHO fellowship on road safety, where we were asked to, where I did a three-part series focusing on different aspects of road safety. And ever since then, WHO recognizes road safety as a health issue. And as being a public health journalist, I took an interest in this, and I've been working on it ever since. My role in the panel is focusing more on road safety and the issues that plague road safety in India. And I hope to learn myself some aspects in terms of gender and road safety.
Thank you, ma'am. Uh, I mean, this is a question to both of you. What do you think are the main issues contributing to high number of accidents and fatality rates? Why road accidents are not getting due attention to curb the increasing trend what we are seeing, experiencing year after year?
Can I start?
Yeah, sure.
Basically, road accidents are a very important issue, but they are also a very it's pretty much very similar to women's safety. You know, once an incident happens, you see increased awareness about women's safety issues and so on, and then it finally tapers down. It's pretty much the same with road safety. You know, you have one big accident or something, then the government will introduce some rules and so on, and then again it will all taper down. So if you look at it, road safety in terms is has three main issues, is what I would see them as. One is that of enforcement. Enforcement of rules from authorities. We do have some rules and regulations in place, but the enforcement is not there. And the reasons for enforcement could be the lack of enforcement can be not enough man-force or manpower to to run these systems. And on other end, there is also a lack of abilities. Like there are only like 10% of RTOs have breathalyzers in the country, breath analyzers, to figure out drunk driving. So there is that end. Then and also on the other end of the spectrum is there is not a lot of penalty involved to road contractors in terms of road construction and so particular designs or potholes. Potholes are the biggest killers for two-wheelers and four-wheeler drivers. But there are no penalties on road contractors, despite of this being written into contracts, but that rarely happens. And the second part is that of training, be it drivers. Driver training is not of the best quality. We have driver, and as you said, like 96% of those who are involved in accidents have a valid driver's license. So that really goes to show that driver training is something that really needs to be worked on. And I believe that if enforcement is done better, then driver training itself will come is also one part of enforcement itself, right? And lastly, I believe there are also the surrounding factors. We have road designs and things like that. There are fundamental issues in the ways our roads are designed. Be it your black spots, the number of black spots that are there in road design, and other areas where, for example, between dividers, when we have trees planted in the middle of the road, yes, it looks beautiful, but it also does bring cattle and animals in those areas who get attracted to those areas, and then you have cattle suddenly coming up in the middle of the road causing accidents. So these are some issues with road design. And finally, it's also a very important aspect is emergency care, lack of emergency care. A patient has a good amount of, has an hour, which is called the golden hour. If and only if the patient reaches a medical health facility by then, can there be any hope for the patient A to be saved or even be saved from long-term injuries, which is another important aspect that needs to be looked at. So these, according to me, are the main issues for road safety.
Thank you, ma'am. I think you touched very important aspects of concern for road safety. I fully agree with you that enforcement is slack in India. But my point of view is I really don't think at any point of time would have enough people to enforce across pan India. I think it's also something to do with the basic nature of people who are using roads. We somehow tend to not comply with what is the rule or what we are supposed to comply, follow a specific traffic rule. We always want to somehow circumvent these safety requirements and some more, I mean, for various reasons. So we seem to unnecessarily jump signals or not follow the proper driving rules. So it has something to do with the, I mean, the people also. I agree with you that enforcement is slack, but I think all citizens who are using roads also uh, have that concern for right use of follow the systems and follow the I mean road traffic rules, etc. to actually for safety of not only self but the safety of others. Uh, Now I look towards Priya.
Yeah. So, Mr. Rao, actually, the question is very technical from an accidents perspective and not from a gender space, because
Yes, I just wanted your. I mean, you have any observation? Otherwise,
I think Prachi has largely covered
yeah,
everything from a
correct.
perspective of why there are accidents, and I'm not an expert on that.
Okay, okay, okay.
So, yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether you would like to respond to this. Do you think women, as general road users and vehicle users, need any special attention? Not just for prevention of road accident, but also make road safer in general?
So I think roads have never been, historically been created or maintained or made for women or people who identify themselves as non-cis men, right? So roads have always been designed to be used, to be explored, exploited, navigated for men. And that in itself has been a big reason why more and more women are not out there and more women feel threatened out there. So, if we were to look at the way roads should be designed, I think there should be space that is, provided for people who can come and occupy that space and feel comfortable, safe, and fine being there. So, in this, in the context of road safety itself, women feel unsafe on roads not because there are fewer CCTV cameras or not because there are not enough police patrolling, but because there are not enough women out there. And unless I feel that there are more women occupying public spaces at all hours of the day, particularly roads and streets, I am not going to get out. So if there is a system that is being built for safer roads for women from a gender angle, then the system needs to make sure that the provision is made for more women to be out there and be out there more purposefully. So, for instance, increasing livelihood opportunities for women, looking at unconventional livelihood options. I think, Mr. Rao, when you were also talking about your earlier statistics, you were talking about the number of drivers. So, how many drivers are really women? How many taxi drivers are women? How many autos and bus drivers are women? So, unless women have employment, occupation, and a purpose for economic growth and benefit on the streets, we're not going to be there. And as women occupying those spaces, I will also feel a lot more comfortable and enthused to go on the roads when I see more pani puri walas who are women, more chai women, vendors who are women, or more drivers who are women. So I feel comfortable to be there because there are more like me to be there. So one of the most important elements for safety for women on the streets is to make sure that there are more women on the streets. Of course, we talk about technical things like lighting and then more, sort of surveillance, more receptive police, more better governance, better implementation of laws on public safety. So all of that matters, but there should be reason for me to be on the road. Second is overall behavior. When we budget for road safety and when we look at a gender-based budgeting for road safety, we're talking about CCTVs and budgets alone. We're not talking about behavior change. We're not talking about acceptance of more people. We're not talking about receptive and active bystanders. So similar to the Good Samaritan bill, which and the act which actually sort of enthuses or motivates people to chip in or pitch in when they see an accident, the Good Samaritan bill should also sort of encompass sexual harassment deterrence, or make sure that there are people who will actually have my back when I feel vulnerable or threatened on the road, not just for accidents, but also for miscreants, inappropriate behavior, any form of abuse, violence that I may face. So overall, people participating and ensuring that each other feels safe, each other feel confident, and sort of motivating us to be there by actually being there are, issues or aspects that never get covered. So a large part of our work within Durga is also to make sure that people know that they have a role to play to put back power in the hands of people, to think through and bring this long-term, what we call behavior change, so that people are occupying spaces and occupying spaces responsibly.
Ms. Prachi, you have any comments?
No, I fairly agree with Priya that more women need to be out there. The only thing I would like to add to this is that making provisions for public transport is very important for if women have to be getting out to their work and so on. Because at the end of there was a Harvard study recently by EPOD, which kind of pointed out that public transport and effective public transport actually improves women's labor force participation, because women tend to feel more, because women tend to use public transport much more than men. So there and useful or effective public transport is very important for women to be able to take part in economic activity.
I just want to add to that point, if I may, Mr. Rao, to what Prachi said. So while there is provision for more transport, I think the provision should also be about safe transport. So if you're looking at a place like Bangalore, we have over 7,500 public buses, the Bangalore Metropolitan services that we have. There are more than 7,500 buses. But women after 7 p.m. will stop taking those buses purely because the buses are not very safe. Plus the point of, the connection between point A to point B is not seamless. So you'll have to get off at some place, then do the last mile connectivity by walk. The lights are not enough. So while there's enough transport systems as infrastructure, it should also sort of keep in mind, which is where I was coming to my original point of, are they women friendly? And are they motivating and enthusing women to be out there? Not enough today. Also, staff of transport. So having a bus is not enough, but are the staff in the bus actually ensuring that I feel comfortable getting onto the bus? Or is the staff of the Ola or Uber cab that I take making sure that I feel safe and comfortable and not vulnerable or perhaps even get violated in that transport? Because we see any number of instances or incidents of violence and abuse in these public transport or transport systems itself. So on one end, having enough of them is important, but also ensuring that those transport services are something that I will take. And what does it mean to have a safe transport is extremely important. And I want to reiterate that having CCTVs alone is not enough. Bringing about responsibility in each citizen is what is actually important. Thank you.
I have one related question. Pre-COVID, there was rapid growth in shared mobility, not only using four-wheelers, but even shared two-wheelers. So, what is your response about safety of women with shared mobility? Do you think this would improve if these vehicles are driven by women?
So it's not may I answer that, Prachi, if it's okay?
Sure, sure.
So it's not a simple, so women's safety or gender-based violence is not a simple problem with, just one solution fixing a large problem. It's very, very complicated. And it is, it's not that women face violence and threat only outside in public spaces, right? So this question of women's participation for economic activity or women's participation in public spaces actually stems from women's roles back at home. So post COVID or during the pandemic, we've noticed that women's participation in homes has become really, really high, right from caregivers to revenue generators to increased work at home, looking after the entire sort of household chores has reduced mobility in homes mobility for women outside of homes tremendously. Secondly, we are in fact one of the worst performing countries as far as women's participation in economic activity. So while the age group of women who can actually be earning money from youth onwards till about 45, 50, well, that percentage in population is actually rising. Women's participation as revenue earners is actually depleting. It's been coming down very consistently in India, and issues so that needs to be addressed. And that's not simply about addressing safer transport. It's a whole lot of values. It's completely the sort of patriarchal practices one sees, whether it's at home, whether it's in the workspace, whether it's in the way to work, home to work. So multiple facets. So to address your question of women taking transport, which is going to be a shared taxi or a shared, form of transport, is not a very simple, easy answer to say that yes, they will start taking it or not. And also to say women drivers will actually make it safer, because as a woman, if I decide to become a driver, I need to also ensure how am I going to stay safe. So there will need to be other mechanisms that ensure that my own safety as a driver will be taken care of. So I should know how to respond to inappropriate behavior. I should, as a driver, know who is the customer who is a potential threat to me and who is not. I should know what should be the way in which I can make a quick call or raise for help or whatever it is in case I am in a difficult scenario. And it's the same for a passenger as well. So if I were to call a cab and I have a person who's already sitting in the cab, who's my co-passenger, I need to actually evaluate various things, which could be, do I still feel, looking at the driver and the co-passenger, am I still comfortable getting into the cab? Do I feel that there could be a slight potential trouble for me? And because of which, do I think I should just sort of not take that cab after all? Where do I go and sit? Do I sit next to the driver or do I sit in the back seat with the co-passenger? There are multiple calls to be taken. How do I ensure that the complete journey of the drive is not going to be just the driver and one co-passenger and not one more? So it's not a straightforward, simple thing. It has to be looked at from case to case. The same individual woman will feel safe in one cab and may not feel safe in another cab. So I wish it was a straightforward answer, but it is not. And it really depends on that person, that day, that time of the hour, the way the taxi person is, the co-passenger is, the rest of the activities the woman has encountered through the day. So it's very, very complex.
No, I agree with that. But when a lady wants to get into a shared vehicle, when the vehicle comes, I don't think she will have so much time to do all these, observations and come to a conclusion that it would be safe for her to travel by that. I don't think she will have that much response time. Having said that, what do you think we should do to improve this situation?
So which is where collective responsibility.
Yeah, that's right.
Collective responsibility is very, very critical. Where we are lacking completely as citizens of the country, no matter what role we play, whether as duty bearers or people who are at the helm of governance or just another good Samaritan or a Samaritan. I think apathy is where we are, and which is what has brought this very, very distressing condition today. If you have ministers who end up being women at the helm of actually standing in front and fighting for women's issues end up saying or making public statements to say that, you know, women should not get out late in the night. If you have important people who can actually fight for our safety, actually making very, very irresponsible statements, and we are actually regressing and going back very, very, several steps back. So most important thing for us is to ensure that each one feels responsible for themselves and feels responsible for the other. Second is huge awareness of the law is very critical, because what one thing has done post Nirbhaya for us is breaking down the law, particularly for public safety as much. So while issues of safety inside the homes, whether it's domestic violence or the Dowry Act, all of that has been there and has been strengthening. Laws which were very loosely structured initially as outraging the modesty of a woman has now been broken down systematically to say what is the law for stalking, what is the law for morphing, what is the law for just bad behavior or taking pictures. So all these laws need to be known, need to be publicized. Women should know that if someone does something which is violating or threatening them, they have legal recourse. A simple thing that we personally believe in Durga is unless you increase the reporting of crime, a reduction in crime is not going to happen. So if one is going to be aware of the law and increases reporting, the other side of it, which is to say that are we supplying enough of information and tools to make women feel comfortable, is both the judiciary as well as the, which is the justice system as well as the police. So police should be far more receptive than they are today. In my own work and my own experience, I have seen when women have walked into police station to say that I am being treated badly by a guy on the road, police simply look at them and say, but you have a boyfriend, or you are the ones who stand in a park talking to men, so anyone can come and treat you badly. You know, if this is going to be the response, they are not going to be able to get anywhere. So police need not sensitization, but sensitivity to address these issues. Police are not aware largely about the crime and laws themselves. Police, for instance, get very mixed up with display of affection and call public display of affection anti, against the law. So police need awareness, sensitivity. The sort of justice system needs to kick in quickly, even for small offenses. And I'm not saying that molestation is a small offense in any way. It is important, it is grave, but we don't have enough ways in which someone can actually see light at the end of the tunnel. So all of these really need to work hand in hand for a woman to get out there and feel confident, feel safe, and feel herself and be out. So it's not just road infrastructure at the end of the day.
Hey, I have one question. What is preventing women to get into, employment or take up various avenues open for earning outside home? Is it the societal issues or family issues which stop more women to get into professions?
So I'm glad you asked that, Mr. Rao, because I think you're coming from a fact that women should be out there and women should contribute enough and more economically. But unfortunately, while the largest part of our unorganized sector, which is a huge contributor to the reason why you and I are able to do this webinar today comfortably, knowing someone else is taking care of our homes, ends up being a woman. But her contribution and her role and her participation in this whole economic activity for us is never recognized. So women are out there supporting and helping people, but because of the class and caste in which they come from, their roles and the contribution never gets recognized. Coming back to the privileged people like all of us who are sitting on this webinar and having conversations, the reason why most of us or many of us are not out there is because of our family. It's because of societal structures. It is because of expectations of women to have enough and more roles within the house that we are not able to participate and contribute enough outside of homes. Just say 50 kilometers from where I'm sitting. I'm in Bangalore. 50 kilometers from where I'm sitting. I'm not even joking. It's unfortunate to say a girl will be fighting to get to study something like even a BA or a BCom because her parents won't send her out. Why will they not send her out? Because she needs to get married or she needs to do work in the house because they don't have financial capability as her brother has to study, or because it's not safe for her to leave her little town and come to another place. So these family structures, these sort of societal expectations, these social norms, which we all sort of bracket and call patriarchy, as long as that exists, women will not be able to be themselves and participate happily and just sort of contribute enough and more towards anything that they can do well. So I just want to stop because I think Prachi should also add here.
Yeah, yeah. Any comments by Prachi?
Yeah, I especially on the part of police enforcement and so on. I have personally faced issues of harassment on the road. And what was amazing was the response of the police was completely in the manner that, oh, you have, if the person has already left bothering you, then why do you need to complain and make a big deal? You're already traveling, so you might as well just, so that attitude needs to change. And I think for that, something that needs to change is also the incentives that are provided. For example, it happens with compliance, right? Collecting fines. Like Mumbai police recently has amassed a lot of money for people breaking the COVID rules and so on. But that shouldn't be the aim. The aim should be how many people are wearing masks. It's the same thing. A performance of a particular road transport division shouldn't be about how many. How much,
Chalans have been cut.
yeah, how much.
Chalans have been made.
Exactly. You can't, that can't be your issue. Your issue should be how many people actually, like, for example, 30% of vehicles in this country don't have car insurance. So what is the point? You're getting penalized once, but are you going and getting that insurance? Not really. So the compliance should be more of a marker than actually, say, a collection of fines shouldn't be the marker for success. And secondly, in terms of why women don't get into workforce, there are many factors. As a health reporter, I have seen it starts right from the beginning, since the day the girl is born, with more girls face malnutrition than boys. And the reason for that is that girl child is treated unfairly, and all this malnutrition kind of then builds on into having lower mental abilities to grasp education and so on. And some of us who do get on, move beyond that, then you have other barriers facing you. And somehow when it's very clear, if you see the pass out rates as well, after 10th onwards till, say, master's degrees or even till BA, the number of girls that have cleared 10th and how many, only half of them reach to a bachelor's or a master's degree. And the number is even worse when it comes to professional courses like engineering, medicine, law, or something like that. So that really remains to be seen, that the glass ceilings start appearing right after, the government stops supporting your education. You see that coming on in higher education, especially.
Actually, both of you mentioned during your comments that what is required is a basic attitudinal change in people to bring in these changes. So, I mean, we had been discussing these things for a long time, like with reference to traffic rules, etc. Also, as I mentioned, it is for all the users to actually play their role correctly to bring in change and make the road safer. So, but what do you think needs to be done to bring in this attitudinal change? It's not an easy task. What will make people change their attitude?
There is policy evidence that many campaigns have actually worked well. The most famous one being the polio drive, the other being the drink and drive campaign. You know, the number of drinking and driving cases have really gone down. Today it is the fourth highest cause of death, and before that you have many others, which is so that goes to show that it can happen. Change in attitude can happen. Media attention is given, a lot of media attention is given to drinking and driving. You have different services coming up. You have technology, you have proper enforcement technologies being put in place. So I think we need to highlight what the issues are, and then kind of moving effectively towards successful media campaigns. And this, I'm sure, once the problem itself is highlighted properly and accepted as a problem, that should be the first step to moving on to, because other things just fall into place.
Yeah. You have anything to say on this? How
Yes,
to
yes,
bring in the
absolutely.
attitude and change?
Yes. So actually, there are several civil society organizations doing some fantastic work at their local levels to really bring this behavior change. And some of them are direct program interventions. Some of them are also campaigns to actually sort of amplify the work that's being happening at a local level. So, for instance, if I could just take the first example, is at Durga itself, we work a lot with youth, youngsters, and create what we call safe spaces for youth, both girls and boys. Talk about how issues of gender, lack of justice, or injustice of gender, how it sort of affects both boys as well as girls. How can an equitable society actually be an advantage for boys and girls? And how do you build your life with respect and trust as the core value? So, a lot of our work stems from there to at least see that the next generation does not sort of perpetuate the same kind of unjust behavior. You have we also work with street vendors, for instance. So what we say is street vendors who have spent about 10 hours a day on the streets, they earn their livelihood on the streets. So how do we actually put the onus of maintaining that street as safe from sexual harassment, sexual abuse, also their responsibility? So we do trainings with them to say that, okay, this space is the reason why you're earning your livelihood. Don't you know that you, or don't you feel you should give back to that space by ensuring that the space is full of respect as well? So that kind of gradually putting the onus or the power in the hands of a common person has been doing well. You have other campaigns run by other civil society organizations where you have another organization called Blank Noise. What they do is basically collect those clothing that people have been wearing when they experience sexual harassment and actually have a huge installation of it or an exhibition of it to say that no one asks for inappropriate behavior, no one asks for sexual harassment. It happens because there's something that's not, there's inequity of power in somebody's head. So there are large campaigns like this, and my sort of thing is that if we could amplify this, adopt it at a larger scale, and promote it with good media, promote it with good sort of ambassadors. Unfortunately, our ambassadors for a polio campaign or for any other campaign charges a lot of money. So even for our own efforts in Durga, if we were to get someone who will be a real brand value to say that, you know what, this person who's got such a huge star image actually says that sexual harassment is a very uncool thing, and he will not sort of promote it in his movies, or they will not do it in their movies. They only charge a lot of money. So we should get most of these brand ambassadors to do this for free as a way of their personal social responsibility, because people listen to them, they have some value. Also, mainstream media, movies do have a huge role to play, and they can actually amplify this change very, very quickly. To say that, movies that are made where repeatedly there is a hero who's very, very big brand image again, keeps commodifying the woman, objectifying her through her songs, running behind her when she says no sense of consent or respect for the woman. And these movies are the ones which today's youth and even you and I watch. And what do we say? Okay, if We ask the woman 4 times, the 5th time she's going to say yes. And if she says no, we will go and kill her, or we will go and throw acid on her, or we will make sure that we, sort of tease her in front of everyone. These kinds of things play a huge role in bringing up people and our mindsets and mentality. So simple things, civil society ideas, direct programmatic intervention, media and people in media, all these 3 elements can actually sort of amplify change at a local level to a much larger level and actually bring behavior change.
Thank you. I fully agree with you. These brand ambassadors, big actors should take up these issues and, I mean, work free of cost to actually promote these issues. I think that will go a long way in common people understanding or appreciating these issues. Post Nirbhaya, do you see any concrete change in people's thinking, or has it brought in any improvement in these issues?
Sure. So what Nirbhaya did was the concern became a common concern. So sexual harassment, sexual violence, gang rapes, caste-based atrocities, domestic violence, all of this has always existed from for a very, very long time. But it all became your problem and my problem and everybody else's problem post Nirbhaya. So the entire nation took to the streets because we were afraid that this can happen to us, it can happen to our children, it can happen to our loved ones. So that's what Nirbhaya really did. And of course, there's been a lot of flack about why only that particular issue was taken up so actively with everyone advocating for justice, and why not those cases that happen on an everyday basis. You can argue why it happened or why not, but what it really did is it has actually put together a lot of structure in our criminal justice system. Our IT Act for cyber harassment, cyber bullying has all become stronger because of post that period, because safety became a huge issue. Like I was talking about Section 354 of the Indian Penal Code, it has been broken down from Section A to E, basically breaking down different forms of crime against women in public spaces and how that needs to be addressed. Then even original equipment manufacturers of buses actually started off putting panic alarms or
Yeah.
CCTV, the whole, sort of how do we increase surveillance and how do we access any kind of response when we are feeling vulnerable, has also been a response to Nirbhaya. The complete sort of protection of women in workspaces, while the Vishakha guidelines already existed, the sort of workspace guidelines came up post Nirbhaya because women had to be safe and should be out and about in public spaces. Several civil society organizations, any number of campaigns, all of this has stemmed from that 2012 December 16th, and rightfully so. But overall, and fear has come up hugely. People are afraid. People know what sexual harassment means, and people actually want to engage in this issue. These webinars are happening on that issue because post Nirbhaya. But what has not changed is crime continues. In fact, irritation, hatred, venom, revenge, all of that continues towards women. So this fear element has set in, systems have set in. Prachi already alluded to the fact that implementation has not happened anywhere. And overall mindset of people to be there for one another, which is what I've been harping from the beginning of the webinar, is that has not changed. And all of this only with that change of people sort of wanting to take safety as their own responsibility. Unless that happens, this can all just be there, and we will not see any change on the ground.
Prachi, you have any comments?
I would just like to highlight one thing is data. As being a data journalist, I've always found this in many government data, that a lot of data, there's no data sanctity, be it, and in fact, many a times women, the whole gender part in many data sets is completely missing. Like, be it something like your RBI's data on bank accounts. There is no data on how many bank accounts are held by women. So this is, one way you're just denying the existence. So data sanctity is very important. So in a way, post Nirbhaya, yes, reporting of crime by women, what is happening has improved. But then on the same hand, the solving of crime or acquittals or convictions has actually declined, which is very worrisome. So these, at least till recently, there has been a lot of issues with transparency going down, and which hurts women more than men, because that kind of invisibilizes your problems, be it your work participation, your unemployment, or any of these data sets. Data actually gives a helps you create a visual picture, kind of tells you the depth of a problem. And the better your data is, the more clearer picture you have as to what the problem is. In terms of even accident reporting, as we pointed out in the beginning, that more live data will be collected. The reason being that we only look at data from police reports. We don't look at hospital admissions, things like that. And you will never know that, if some pedestrian woman has just been hurt by a car, and the car driver just took her to the hospital, left her at the hospital and went away. We'll never know any of these things. So data is one aspect which I think really needs to be worked on, because that will give us a much more clearer picture as to whether what is actually happening on the ground when we put in new laws and new procedures and so on. And secondly, it will also tell us whether those procedures and these are actually been working on, is enforcement working or not, any of that.
Thank you. Ma'am, which country you think is the best from women's safety point of view?
I think there is unfortunately no space which can really say that this is the best country for safety. But of course, there are like your Scandinavian countries definitely fare better in the overall sort of gender indices as such. But many so some of these countries, whether it's Canada or Sweden, they have good laws which sort of, ensure that women feel safe. And then there's better implementation as well. There's more access and, overall better sort of standard of living and quality of life for women. But some of the laws, even within India, for instance, whether it's the workspace harassment and the policy around it, which specifically protects women, some of the policies in India are very bang on and extremely equitable from the whole direction in which it comes. It is all up to how we actually make use of the law, how much of it is actually enforced and implemented, and first of all, how much of it are we even aware of? So I wouldn't say one country or shouldn't peg one place over the other. I think overall, as a race, as humans, we should stop living only for ourselves and start being a lot more community conscious, build more empathy and respect within ourselves, and at least make sure that our next generation doesn't sort of thrive on the problems that our generation has created.
Prachi, what is your view?
Well, my examples will be mostly focusing on road safety.
Road safety, yeah, that's right.
Singapore has a good licensing and enforcement infrastructure, especially when it comes to two-wheelers and so on, where they ensure that you tend to graduate to different vehicles based on your training and exams, and then a license is given to you. So unlike, so it has one of the best licensing systems. And in terms of emergency care, Japan has the best emergency care system available, where you have, emergency care is provided free of cost to anyone who's been in an accident. So, and it reaches within, it has the, as I said, the golden hour is an hour but Japan manages to reach most of its accident victims by 10 to 15 minutes max, which is really good. So that's one of the two examples from road safety that I can point out.
Do you feel there is enough dialogue between government and other stakeholders in media and the actual people? And you think there is anything more required to highlight these issues in public domain?
Prachi, do you want to take that first or should I go?
I couldn't hear it, sorry.
Oh, what I'm saying is there enough dialogue between the government, other stakeholders, and media about these issues? Or you think something needs to be done to actually highlight these issues further?
Uh, in terms of road safety, yes, there is a lot that can be done in terms of road safety. Like there have been times where I wasn't aware a lot of things about road safety until I became a part of the road safety media fellowship. And something like long-term disabilities that are caused due to road accidents is also a second very important aspect of road safety. Then the golden hour, why emergency care is important. All these issues are very important issues. They are impacting our economy. We lose around 3 to 5% of our GDP due to road accidents. So it is clearly an important issue. But in terms of awareness, there is not a lot of awareness. And if a media person is saying this, that means the overall awareness within the society is even lower. So I think there need to be more efforts that focus on road safety, road safety in particular.
Thank
So,
you.
so
Yeah, Priya.
as far as women's safety is concerned, so whether it's Badao in UP and the case that's happening right now, the gang rape of a 50-year-old, I
Artharas.
think there's enough and more dialogue and distress calls that have been raised to government, duty bearers, authorities repeatedly, and in some sense, I think they don't get it. You know? And which is where we are as far as public safety for women is concerned. And like I said, repeatedly, you have irresponsible comments about what women should wear, what women should do. Women should not go out late in the night. Women should walk out only with their father, brother, or a dog late in the night. Women should not wear jeans. Women should not have mobiles. So if there are going to be lots of don'ts alone that as a government or as policy makers, you're going to be, sort of putting down for women, the entire issue is not even being looked at progressively. It's not even being looked at from a rights perspective for another citizen. So people are aware, even irresponsible comments around marital rape, irresponsible comments around domestic violence. You don't have the National Commission for Women actually talking about progressive laws. You don't have them talking about issues from the perspective of being a woman. So issues are out there. Everybody knows about it. It's being covered widely, and people are aware that they should take action. But being a very wicked problem that we have left unaddressed for generations, it is not easy to resolve. And I'm unfortunately saying that we're not even taking the first step to resolve it in the right direction. So that's where we are collectively as far as women's safety is concerned.
Before we close the webinar, I would like to hear from both of you three most important actions for everybody who is using a road to improve the situation with reference to road safety, either for road accidents or for the safety of women, security of women.
From a women's perspective, I think three important things that I would tell. I wish I could say it. I mean, I'm nobody to say it, but because I'm being asked, I'm saying three important things for women to do to feel safe and secure is be out there on the roads. Do not ever stop being on the road. That's the most important thing. In fact, our newest campaign within Durga is to get more women out on the road. Second is be confident, stay calm, because even if something is likely to happen or about to happen, most of the times the person who is the perpetrator of violence is doing it not because they are seasoned at it, but just because they think they can take advantage over you. So staying calm, confident and calm is absolutely critical. And third is, even if something happens, it's never your mistake. So please stop feeling victim blamed, shamed, any of it. Just sort of address it and move on. I think these are the three most critical things I would like to, sort of share with women humbly.
Your advice for males?
Stay at home.
What will happen to economy, everything?
Because we're actually already calculating the economy very incorrectly. We believe that men contribute to it, but we fail to believe that men are able to contribute to it only because women are contributing to it as well, whether
Yeah,
it's
that's
as
right.
domestic helps or as home caregivers. So if men stay at home, I don't think, because your stats of accidents also said men cause more accidents. So if men stay at home, we can have a pleasant time.
No, both have their role to do, and unless both do their job, their duties, nothing will happen. If
Yeah. So men are our unlikely allies, So the way we work with men, it's our work is, when we talk about feminism or human rights, we're not talking about anti-men at all. We actually look at men as our allies, people who can understand, be receptive, and actually participate in our problems and contribute to solutions with us. So just being sensitive and aware and being with us and not, sort of taking it as us versus them is the only thing that, we expect from men. Just be with us as our allies.
you think that's missing now?
Absolutely.
I mean, is it a general statement, or I mean, you're talking about majority?
It's a majority. It's a
Okay.
majority.
You think this is same in rural areas and urban areas?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Because the whole violence against women is a womb to tomb violence. So, right from female infanticide and feticide all the way till whatever age you are, that whole violence is perpetuated in all parts, irrespective of class and caste and geography. And so it is a wider thing, because it's not about passion, it's not about, it's just power, right? And power comes from any background. So this sort of bad balance of power happens everywhere, as much in urban spaces as in rural spaces.
Oh, that's a very, I mean, point of concern, big concern. I thought it's different in urban and rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Prachi,
Uh, my three areas will be three areas will be pertaining to road safety.
yeah,
It's proper enforcement of laws. In terms of proper enforcement of laws, better access to better emergency care free of cost, and third, lastly, would be actually promotion of public transport. And the reason for this is a lot of people take up, like, I'm coming from Mumbai. I know that we travel really long distances on two-wheelers and, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, say 35, 40 kilometers every day. That's a huge this for a person to drive every day too. So if you have better access to public transport, people will be better and safer. Access to public transport will ensure that there'll be fewer cars on the road, and more people will prefer to use these modes of transport. Also affordable. That's very important. So yeah, those three.
thank you. I would like to thank both Priya and Prachi for their very interesting insights into road safety, not only from uh, accident point of view, but also from women's security point of view. It was a very interesting, lively discussion we had. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dipanshu.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. And we really had a wonderful time. And thank you so much, Prachi ma'am, Priya ma'am. The topic is indeed very important for all of us. And one thing I really liked is that men have to start talking about women's safety. It's not only that women talk about women's safety, men have to start, and not only start, we just have to act on it. And there have been multiple talks. There have been multiple incidents which have provoked the whole country as well, and which many a times brought us all together for the topic. But yeah, what's more important is that we all have to think it from a collective perspective. And what I would suggest, that nobody stays at home. Everybody should be able to do whatever they are doing, but just be more sensible and just be more committed towards what you are doing. So that is something which I really believe. And there are many key takeaways as well from today's webinar, which is very important. And I'm glad that ma'am have uh, shared the key takeaways as well. And once again, I would like to thank everyone. I would like to thank honorable speakers. I would like to thank honorable moderator. And yeah, it's the first webinar that we're having in 2021. And we hope that we'll keep having these webinars now on a daily basis. And thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, all the participants who have joined in. And it's a pleasure to have you all. And stay safe. Yes,
Thank you.
that's all from my end, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Happy New Year, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.